Hey everybody, this is Deep Madness. Deep Madness is a science fiction, well, kind of fantasy too. It's tough to explain. Basically, the game is about you and your team, which is you and the other players playing the game. It is a cooperative game that have been sent to this undersea lab deep in the depths of the ocean that we're, doing experiments man was never meant to know. And they have somehow opened up some portal or something to another dimension, and all these horrible, evil, twisted creatures are pouring through and have come over and have starting to devour both the station and the people that were in it, and you have to go down there and find out exactly what happened and combat it. This is a game that drips with theme, has beautiful miniatures, and really fun strategic tactical gameplay. These are the types of games that I really like. I like games that are scenario driven, that have really interesting maps, really interesting events and actions and things that happen, and you and the other players all work together as a team to try to defeat some common goal, some common enemy. It has a lot of cool stuff going on. As I said, it looks astounding. So I'm going to give you an overview of the rules and try to explain to you exactly what happens. If I went over every single possible rule, it might be too long of a video. It's already going to be a long one anyway. But I'll try to give you a really good feeling of how the game is played, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so Deep Madness. Alright, so this is Deep Madness, and this is a game where you're going to be creating the map every single time that you play. It really depends upon the scenario that you're being given. With this prototype that I was sent, even though it's a pretty high-level prototype and the pieces are really good, I was only sent the one scenario, like the opening scenario for the game. So this is what I had to go on, but this was a really good introduction, as usually, that opening scenario usually is. It's just to kind of teach the players how the game is played. I don't have the miniatures because I didn't get enough minis to actually play, so I have standees, for the monsters and for the heroes that are over here as they're getting ready to come into the submerged lab that they've been sent to go and investigate. But I will show you those miniatures towards the end of this so you can get a good look at those, because they are really awesome. Alright, so as you can probably expect from a game like this, you're going to have a bunch of different cards that you're going to be using. I'll kind of go through all that in just a little bit. You got a bunch of tokens that you'll be using to keep track of each player's health and sanity. And also to denote certain things that are going on the board. Now, when you set up the board, you are given a map that is just basically and tells you where to go. Now, these you can see here, like the ones that have this little red outline around them. Those are submerged rooms. You got to remember, this is an underwater facility, and so some of this has been damaged, and those are filled with water. And that is, they have this little token in there to show that they are submerged, and you place that on there. Now, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. That's important because basically for every round that you spend in a submerged room, you have to use your oxygen. This is an oxygen tank thing that you're going to be adjusting slowly but surely, and it goes down, as you can see. Once you run out of oxygen, obviously that's bad. You're going to have negatives to how many dice you have, and also just to your actions and what have you, and eventually and you take wounds as well, and it'll just flat out kill you if you run out of air. Now, the nice thing is that all you need to do, really, even though you're going to be going into rooms that are submerged, you have enough air, theoretically, to do something, as long as you don't get trapped by monsters or something like that. And as soon as you get to a spot that has air, you just get to reset it. So it doesn't matter if it's all the way down to here. As soon as you're in a spot that has air, you just reset your thing all the way back up to the maximum level. Now, if you have suffered any ill effects from being under the water, those don't go away. You have to heal those or take care of that another way. But you do just get your oxygen back automatically. So, and that's really cool because thematically, like I said, you're in underwater. And any game, I believe, that has this underwater world kind of thing going on, I think that's an extremely important aspect of it. And without that, you're going to lose a little bit of the immersion that's going on. But anyway, so Each player will get a character, and these are just, the soldier or the doctor or the captain and so forth. Each person gets one of these, and then they have these stats. This is their health. That's how much damage they can take, and when they run out of health, as you probably guessed it, they are dead. This is their resilience. When they take damage, what they will do is they will roll 2 dice, and they roll those dice, and if they get a result like that, they can reduce the damage they take for each success that they get. Because they're resilient. This is their sanity. You are allowed in this game to reduce your sanity by placing these tokens on your character for a number of different things to take certain actions. The most common thing is that if you roll a die and you want to re-roll it, you take a sanity and you re-roll the die by doing that. Once you get full, you max out with your sanity, you can't do that anymore, but you can take an action like basically to rest and recoup that gets rid of all these tokens. Now on the flip side of these tokens are these madness tokens. Now you will get madness through like different aspects of the game, like certain actions or certain events that'll happen, but most commonly you will get madness for fighting these otherworldly creatures because they are crazy and insane looking. And so, but you can only get that if you have a negative, like you have one of these exhausted tokens on your character, and then you would flip it over. Now, being submerged in the water and stuff like that, that can sometimes give you those automatically, and this game is set up to beat you. I mean, it is a co-op game, and it is meant to be difficult, so this is kind of one of those frustrating things. Now, if you get too many madness tokens, you will be forced to draw a madness card, and then you'll have to accept whatever fate is given to you with the madness. So now these don't have any of the flavor text on them or whatever. I've seen some of the flavor text, and they are about seeing like otherworldly visions or having imagining demons or eating your brain, things like that. Very, very thematic and gruesome. But like the madness, each investigator discards one of their search cards, and search cards are items and stuff you can find. I'll show you this in just a second. Here, right after this. Gain slow. So obviously you move slower. You don't have as many options to when it is your turn. Your room is devoured. If it has already been devoured, exhaust all of your sanity. Now, that's a good point. I should actually talk about devoured, and I will. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the search cards. On your turns, you're allowed to search once. You get 3 actions on your turns, and you can normally do all of them as many times as you want. You can attack as many times as you want. You can move as much as you want, but you can only search once. And when you search, you draw a card, and then you can get cool stuff. So, like, this is the hand tool. It's a melee weapon. Attack. If all the dice results are attack, you may discard. This is a negative effect, but so it tells you like 3 dice. It hits on a 3 or better, and each time you hit, it will do 1 point of damage. And so you'd use this obviously to defeat monsters. Submachine gun, and so like different things have different abilities. This one is a ranged weapon. Range is very, very simple in this game. Basically, if as long as you have you don't have to turn a corner to see something, you can see it. So like if you were here and something was there you wanted to shoot, 1, 2, that if this hatch is open, you'd be able to see it. But this one you wouldn't because you're turning a corner to see it. Line of sight is very easy to figure out in this game, and I do like that. I like when line of sight isn't like, okay, now take out a protractor and attach this corner to that corner. Now, do you see any of the X, Y, or Z's in this? So nice that it's just that quick and that simple. Some of these will have 2 different effects on them. So you can discard this card to restore up to 3 sanity, or when you take an attack action with a melee card, you may flip this card to gain +1. So, so some of those are different like that. I'm going to try to find an armor card here really quickly so you can see something. Oh, and I should mention, here's, I just saw it. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Here, this, pretty boring, it's a flashlight, You're like, well, what goes a flashlight? It has +2 to this stat here. So what does that mean? Well, each one of these characters has that stat. That is your trap stat. Now, what trap stat stands for is basically as you're moving through the board, and you're going to run into monsters. Monsters are going to run you down. They're going to try to kill you. They're going to try to take you out. Monsters, let me just show you a monster card real quick here. Monster cards have this stat, which is their trap stat on them. They are able, with the trap stat, they are able to, as long as if the monsters in your area are equal to have trap stat equal to or greater then your statistic as well, they're able to keep you from moving. They kind of just they block all their exits, and they get to stop you from exiting out of that spot. Which, if you're low on health, if you're running out of air, if you're cut off from the rest of the people in the party, all things that are bad. And so, you know, like, here's like a flashlight that, like, basically, because you can, I don't know, you can see better, and so you can see the monsters and escape them, but, you know, you can get away as far as that goes. And then, like I said, there are things like armor as well, like this protective suit. And then, you know, you like, roll one additional die when you would decide your resilience. So you get a bonus to your resilience as far as that goes. You're allowed to have 4 of these cards. If you get another one, and you have to discard one. You are allowed to trade them back and forth as long as there's another player in the same spot as you, as an action, as one of your 3 actions. And it isn't one item per action. You can trade every single thing that you have for every single thing they have with just one action. So you can kind of chain those things together pretty easily. Alright, so each scenario will have its own goal. And so this win, all the scenario cards are placed on the board, and investigator with the scenario card is killed. So, like, okay, so the scenario cards are these right here. Your goal in this game, and like I said, I don't have the flavor text, so I don't know exactly why these scenario cards are important. But the name of the thing is linking minds. So I can only assume that, like, you're trying to investigate just exactly what these crazy creatures are, and why they're here, and why they're in this lab, and how they got there. And so your goal is to get to these locations here, and then accomplish the task that is on those cards. And then everybody needs to get to this spot over here, and then deposit their card on that spot. So once again, I don't know exactly what the theme is, so maybe you're, like, getting data or something, I don't know, and then you're feeding it into a computer to some other place, some other place that will take that data and use it to combat these creatures. Pure supposition on my point, but that's the whole point of the game. So when your character, if your character is on one of these locations, they can just, like, so it's investigate. You roll 1 die, and then you place the successes on the card. If you have no exhaustion, you can re-roll it once, and then if you can discard, after this has 3 tokens, 3 of those success tokens on there, you can flip it to side B. And so side B says, investigate, acquire this card, and you are paralyzed. Your max brains is increased by 1 as long as you have this card. So paralyzed just basically means you can't do anything for 1 turn, and then you're fine. But then you can take this, and then you can carry it with you and bring it over to there. Now, these cards are random. There are several of them, but I only have 3 on the board here. If you have less players, there's only 2 cards instead of 3. I just put all 6 players on there just for the fun of it. And so they aren't all the same. So, like, here's roll 1, place those on the card. If there is a monster in this space, you can't take the action, but otherwise it's still the same thing. Here you flip it over, investigate, acquire this card, and then your trap is increased by 1 as long as you have this card. So you put these down, and so you can read the top part of it, but you don't know what's on the other side. So it's one of those things where you're kind of gambling that you're not going to have something bad happen to you. And you might say, well, you'll get used to it, as far as, well, I know this one doesn't have anything, but I know that one will cause me to be paralyzed. There are multiple cards for each possibility, so you can't always guarantee yourself as to knowing what will be good or bad. So just, you can't game the game, if you will. So just so you know that. All right, so like I said, here you have the board. If there's any specific rules, like as far as how you win and whatever, they're over here. And this is the track that you start with, this little token, this devoured token. And what you do is you start processing and going through, as each turn as the game goes. And if you ever reach here, as you can probably guess, you're just going to lose. These spots, you look down here and tells you each investigator exhausts 1 oxygen, and then their max oxygen is reduced by 1. So like like the place is flooding, or you're losing losing air in there. If you reach it to this point, each investigator exhausts 3 oxygen, and their max oxygen is reduced by 3. So, you know, that's probably going to kill you if this doesn't kill you anyway. So as you go through each of these spots, what you're going to be doing is first, and you do this every turn. First, what you're going to do is you have, and I should have pointed this out, but there are 3 spots on the board right now that are devoured, and you can tell they're devoured because they have these like yellow. They have a yellowness to it instead of a blue. So this spot is devoured. This spot is devoured, and this spot is devoured. Now, those 3 locations all have these devoured tokens on them. They have these spots where you put these devoured tokens. Now, devoured means that basically they've been twisted and turned over to this crazy alternative monster world that exists. And when you are in those spots, you know, like you come under effect like certain things that happen. So like here, like all monsters, well, first like walking in, you just get 2 exhaustion tokens just walking into the room, just because it's so strange. Monsters will do more damage. Monsters will be better at attacking. They'll be better at trapping you there. All those things, and those tokens are drawn randomly and placed in those spots. Now, during this phase, when you move up on the track and you devour a room, what you do is you turn a card over, and then depending upon the number, you find that number of the card, and so like it would be this one right here. So I'll take these off, and what you do then is you flip the card over to the other side, and make sure I put this the right way, like so. You flip it over, and you put the stuff back that was in the room, that was there. And then you're going to be putting those tokens in those 4 locations. However, the first thing you do is each person, like the players decide which spot will be a valid spot for spawning a monster. And so like then you take and like you say, this is going to be the monster spawn spot for that. And you notice there's already a monster spawn spot here, there's a monster spawn spot there, and there's a monster spawn spot here. Those were set up when the game was created. Then you take these random devoured tokens. I'm just going to grab 3 of them. So they have this on the one side, and then you flip them over, and then these effects take effect inside the room immediately once they're placed. And then you go through actually spawning monsters. Now, how many monster spawn cards you turn over is determined by this over here. You know, so like this is 2, 2, 2, but as the game progresses, you're going to get more, 3, and then towards the end you're getting 4. So obviously you're going to have more and more and more and more. So then the spawn cards are these cards right here. So if you turn these over, they'll tell you what type of monster spawns. In this case, it is a twisted monster, and you're going to spawn 1. So 2 rooms are going to spawn 1 twisted monster. So let me go ahead and grab a twisted and a twisted. So now which rooms spawn them? So the first one is, what's the top number? So number 4 will spawn 1, and then you take that card and you put it at the bottom of the deck, and then now you have number 22 will spawn them. And I believe, no, that number 22. So then we're going to put 1 in there as well. And then put that one at the bottom of the deck. Now, obviously, as you can see, like next turn, we'll draw a card randomly, we'll turn it over, and then we know, and this is all information that the players should know, you know that number 11 is going to spawn, well, 1 as well, but we don't know what the next one's going to be because we're going to devour another room soon enough. So that's how the board gets populated with the monsters. Now, actions and how players take their turn. So after you spawned all the monsters and you've taken care of all that, now you're going to go to the activation phase. Now I do apologize because of how small my table is. It's tough to show you the activation phase. So basically what happens is you take all of the player cards. There's player cards that have the names of each player on there, and then there's monster cards that have the monster cards of each one as well. And what you do is you set these up in a string, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you set these up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because there's like 6 investigators, and sometimes you'll have less investigators, and if you have less investigators for each investigator you don't have, you just put this in the deck instead of having a monster one. And then, so what happens is that, like, so basically this person will activate, and then this monster will activate if there's any on the board. And then going on to, like, the next person would be, now this person would activate, and then this monster would activate. And so you kind of go back and forth like so. And so normally, like I said, this isn't, you'd see all of them and they'd be strung out in a line, so you'd be able to tell. So just, and if you go and check out the rules for the game, you can kind of see that they do put it out really well. So you can kind of see, and this is a very tactical game. One of the things I like about it as well, very tactical as far as, like, knowing what's happening in the future. So how do we prevent that from, like, affecting us now? How do we prepare for that? And I like games like that where I'm allowed to, like, it feels like I have a chance, I guess, because this is a very tough game to win. The monsters are very brutal. But so you go through, and you go through each and everything like that. Now, after all those things are done, after everybody's taken their actions and you've activated each and every monster, and I'll talk about character actions and monster activation here a little bit more in just a second, but then you reset the decks, and then whoever was the first character that went, they shuffle back to being the last person to go the next round, and then you move everybody up one. So so you do cycle through, and it does change up. The initiative order does change up as the game progresses. So that's just something that's how you go through each and every action. So it's like, it is a you go, I go type of thing, but you get to go through all of them. And obviously, like, if you don't have a certain type of monster on the board, then you just want to activate that, and that's something you plan for as well. And that's why you have this card that says you just don't activate the monster that's underneath this card, because then you can plan for that as well. You're going to know certain monsters just aren't going to move or attack, and maybe that's your chance to go and take them out, or sneak by them, or what have you. So I've pretty much gone through all the different actions players can do. Attacks are very simple. Whatever weapon you're attacking with, you roll the number of dice that you get, and then and you count up the total number of hits. If the total number of hits is enough to kill the monster, they have health scores as well. So if it's enough to kill the monster you're targeting, you just remove it from the board. If you kill a monster and you don't, and that's when you get madness. It's like, if you kill a monster, you do look at their madness rating, and if you have exhausted tokens on your character, you then change those into madness tokens. But if you don't have any exhausted tokens and you manage to kill a monster, you get a bonus of taking one of these consciousness cards that give you extra things. So it's like so flavor text, but acquire a search card and things like that. If you collect 10 of these as a group, all of you together, you put them on here on the board, and you prevent this from going up one. So, being able to, actively seek out and kill monsters while not being exhausted is very important. And so that's why that action of resting and recouping, like, you'll go into a spot with a monster, or you'll set yourself up for a ranged attack on a monster, and you'll rest before you do it to, and use an action to kind of compose yourself, and then you will fight that monster and kill it, and then gain a consciousness card as a bonus. And that is a very, very wise and strategic decision to make. Yes, it does take some extra time, but a lot of times it's when you do that, it's what kind of saves you and prevents you from losing the game, if you will. Just a couple other quick things before I talk about monsters. There are these little hatches here. You can, as an action, close them. There's just like a hatch closed thing. Monsters have trouble with doors. This is players can move through them just fine. They can just walk right through them because they're open and closed. They know how to push the buttons or whatever to open those up. Monsters have trouble. They get to roll against their madness stat and try to get 2 successes. And if they're able to do that, and that's as a group. If there's a bunch of monsters on one side, they roll against their madness stat. And basically what they're doing is just smashing the door down. And once the door is smashed down, you use this token to show that door can't be closed anymore because it is gone. But that's something that the players will be using as well. They will be using the doors to their advantage to close themselves off or prevent monsters monsters from chasing them down. All right, so just explaining monsters pretty quickly. Like as far as the monsters, you have their stats over, like if they have range, how much damage they do with their attacks, madness stats, everything like that. They are able, like any special abilities, like husks spawn mine eaters in their space. You can here's a when if and they over here is the MAS, so move, action, and special is what that is. So if they're in the same spot as somebody, they will attack them. If they can move into a spot with somebody, they will do that. And then whoever they're closest to. It's just like if you play games like this, you pretty much know most of the time monsters will try to move onto a spot or get closer so they can attack another player. But, so, like, here is, like, the Putrid. It moves, and then it activates. You do this in exactly the same roll. So, activate. Before the attack action, roll 1, this 12-sided die here. This thing with all these gruesome little symbols here. If you get a mouth, the target investor must discard 1 search card when it approaches. So, it's so horrible and awful that it'll... it makes you lose an item, if you will. So all of these have these special abilities. The one that I really thought was cool was the Hysteria card. Let me show you this real quick. So you're like, if it is on a possessed card, the investigator takes 2 wounds, because you'll notice it doesn't do any damage with its attack. I was like, what is it? What is that? And gains slow. And ends the turn ends, and its turn ends immediately. But here, after the attack action, the target investor gains a possessed card and gains slow, and then place this Hysteria on it. So the thing is that, like, this literally is like it's possessing people, and so like you will give this, that's its attack, and then if you are still, because remember it's the action, the attack action is last, but so if you're still possessed, come next turn. If this is on a possessed card, so like you're gonna move the monster over to this card, like so, and that will be on the character. So like if this guy, so you'll be like that. This is just a really cool idea for a monster. So if it's on that card, the investigator takes 2 wounds, and gains slow, and so it's just like. You have to get this off of somebody because it's slowly like eating their brain or something from within. And that's kind of like the whole thing about this game that I really, really liked, is that it is this otherworldly spot. It is this like incredibly unique mix of genres. It's both like psychological terror, plus like the whole underwater world, and like trying to escape like your doom at the bottom of the ocean as well. I really liked the amalgamation of those ideas. So I always like games like this. I really like strategic tactical games of like this type of genre, and I knew I was going to like this one a lot. I'm going to talk to you more about that in my final thoughts, but I swore I'd show you some of the minis, so 1 second. Alright, so these minis are a very hard resin, so I don't know if the quality or whatever, I'm assuming it'll be very close, to this. But I mean, if you can just see just how absolutely cool these things look. I mean, and like I said, these are hard resin, they are kind of brittle. A few of them did not make the trip over from China when I got these. But these are super, super cool. Check out, like, that would be that Twisted that we were just talking about. I mean, obviously, like, having the standees works just fine, but, when you're going to have these out there, and if you're any good at painting them, I'm not. If you're any good at painting, these things would pop like crazy when you're playing the game. And also, they are going to come with colored stands that you'll put underneath, so you can, at a glance, kind of recognize which monsters are which. So you're not, like, because obviously, like, with, like, is that the other tentacled guy, or is that other tentacled guy? you put you can put that circle underneath them, and so then you'll know, like, the red ones are the Twisted, and so then you activate the reds or whatever. But now look at this guy. I mean, that guy looks like a Mind Flayer from, like, My Nightmares. Not like a Mind Flayer wouldn't be scary at all, but I mean, this one, I when I saw this, I immediately thought of D&D, I thought of Mind Flayers, and I thought of how could I want a bunch of these minis. I want to have like some evil race of alien mind flayers in my next D&D campaign that are like controlling the world, and I could use these miniatures for that. Really, really cool stuff. And here's like this one. I think I apologize. I think this guy is his head. Maybe this is the one that doesn't have it. Didn't come with a head. Yeah, no, it's but like super cool, very, very detailed. And this last one here looks like something right out of Stranger Things, if you know what I'm talking about. Um, you know, just horrible, just absolutely awful. And like I said, if you had these like on the board and mapped out, totally cool. And there's also big boss monster type things as well. So it isn't. These are much bigger minis. So like they do have like tougher level. I really like this one because it's like, I hope you can see this. It's like, I don't know what that's supposed to be, like a second head. Like it's twisted. It's horrible. It's awful. And I really dig the fact that it is this kind of macabre and just really, really scary looking stuff. So there you go. I invite you to go ahead and check out the Kickstarter page and check out the game page so you can see more pictures of everything. If you have any questions, well, actually, let me do my final thoughts, and then we'll come back. Well, actually, I won't come back here, but final thoughts. If someone asked me to describe Deep Madness and as far as like what it was or like what genre game is, I'd say co-op to begin with. But then like as far as thematically, I would say it kind of like takes those, like, remember like in the late 80s, early 90s where there was that kind of weird string of like horror movies that were about the ocean and like ocean monsters and whatever. It was Deep Rising was one, I think, wasn't it? I don't know. Deep Star 6, I think, was another one. God, I can't remember all the names of them, but they were all about these mutated creatures or whatever that were like eating people and killing people. And so like take that, but then throw in a lot of like just otherworldly Cthulhu-esque goodness, because I really got a Cthulhu feel for this game. It was just like, because there were all these like these monsters rolling around, and just the fact that they were just warping your mind and changing you, and like you were also you were battling against just like mental exhaustion as well as being ripped apart and eaten. I thought it was a very, very good combination of those things. So, I just knew I was going to like the game. I dig games with lots of dice. I dig games where you basically have probability and chance to succeed at certain things, and the more dice, the better, of course. And so it was one of those things where when they described the game to me, when the company did, when they contracted me to do this, I knew I was going to like it unless the rules were like hideously bad. But they aren't. Like I said, it's for a prototype. It was a really, really good rule book. It not only did it explain the rules, but it also then walked you through each step. And so I didn't have a really problem, grokking exactly what happens in each every thing. So it's one of those things where, yes, it'll take a turn or two for you to kind of get exactly what you're doing in each and every turn. But after that, it's a snap, and then you can kind of allow yourself to be immersed into the world and kind of feel the paranoia and the dread that your heroes are probably going to be feeling, as they're creeping along these submerged submerged like hallways and rooms, and like you can kind of almost feel it, like that thing with the flashlight. It's like you just know it would be like super dark, and you've got your scuba suit on, so you can't hear anything, right? And so like you're looking around, and you got like a viewport, so you can't see everything, and you feel all claustrophobic, and you know that like if you run out of air, you're gonna suffocate. It's very I don't usually get creeped out by games, and I don't really get creeped out by this one. But if you could kind of put yourself into the world, no way in heck, no, it's okay. I'm not going to go down to the creepy giant undersea lab that is full of monsters. You can send somebody else. I'm gonna go home and forget that I ever worked for you. That would be kind of the mentality I would have, But luckily we have these escapism games that we can kind of like be a little bit braver than we ever would be in real life, if you will. But it's these types of games. It's a thematic game. It is dice. It is chaos. It is randomness, and it's a co-op. But I mean, this falls into that world of like Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror for me, with a healthy dose of all the tons of like minis combat games that are out there as well, and like Descent and things like that, where you have miniatures on a board and you're doing battle and you're choosing different abilities and attacks and items and whatever. It's a time honored brand of game that as long as the theme and the mechanisms don't get in each other's way, you're going to really enjoy it as a player. So basically, I'm betting the vast majority of you, when this isn't a soul numbing euro of moving cubes. This is a game of combating horrible creatures using machine guns and lasers. And so if that appeals to you, I'm pretty sure you're absolutely going to love this, especially if you like a really good presentation and really cool looking miniatures. So there you go. That's Deep Madness. If you have any questions about the game, ask away. I'll answer those if I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. And until next time on The Undead Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.